Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today we are going to be talking about accidentals. We're going to be talking about the order of sharps and flats, and we're going to be talking about key signatures. The first thing we're going to talk about is accidentals. There is a common error that a lot of new students accidentally make, and what that is horrible pun time, is they will do an accidental. Now, I haven't talked about accidentals because I've assumed you know what they are, but we need to go over some things because these errors are just too common when writing music. So let's say that up until now, I have said don't use key signatures if you know what they are. Just use your mind. Get really used to writing in a key and being conscious of the sharps and flats. Because if you're not, they will bite you. It is also a way to reinforce the memory of a major key for now. That's what I've been aiming for, is just get you real comfortable with that. So let's say you're writing in the key of D major and you say, okay, I'm not using my key signatures yet. And let's say that, I'm going to work with an F here. And you say, oh yeah, in the key of D, the F is sharp, right? So I put a sharp on this F. And then my question is, I'm writing this on a test, and then all of a sudden I realize, holy smokes, this F is sharp, but is this F also sharp? Does this F become sharp? And the answer is no. This F is actually natural, and if I play the two notes, those are two different notes. Obviously, they're an octave apart, but one is an F natural. And if I move it up, now it's an octave. They are the same note, an octave apart. But there's both F sharps. So the takeaway is an accidental only applies an exception to the diatonic key. Now, these are a lot of big words, but basically, right now we are working in C major. As far as the key signature is concerned, it's all natural, and there's no sharps, no flats. So this F sharp, this accidental is what it is it's saying to the key signature, there is an exception. This note is sharp. And so it only accepts this note, though, from the key signature, which is all natural right now. We're going to get into it a little bit more. So since it's all natural, it only accepts the Fs on this octave, which is, I believe this is an F sharp 4. So this F sharp in the 4th octave is sharp. The 5th one is not, unless we also write a little exception. So just be aware of that. Don't make that mistake. So now this brings us to an interesting property. The bar lines, what happens after you reach a bar line? Because if you know about accidentals, you know that if I include a note here, that this note is an F natural again. Because if we go back, see, these are different notes. So that's an F natural. What happens at the bar line? Why does the bar line put it all back to natural? Well, what the bar line does is the bar line says whatever exceptions existed from our key that were not diatonic, so notes that were exceptional, whatever, they weren't included, reset the key signature. So our key signature right here, which is all natural, there's no sharps or flats, is reinstituted at the beginning of this measure. Everything's been put back. So you have to make all the same exceptions again if you want to be working in it. Now, this is a really great thing when you're learning keys and trying to be conscious of them. You're putting the sharps on every single note. And sometimes you'll give musicians courtesy sharps because maybe they forgot. Because this implies that it is more effective to think in a key. So it's when you're thinking in a key, you're going to always know the F is sharp and the C is sharp, and you just know that. It's part of the key. I've wanted you to be conscious of this, but writing in all these sharps is prone to error, and it's less effective. It takes more writing. So what we use is a key signature. And so a key signature is, you see all my sharps that's disappeared. What it does is it says that all the Cs in every single octave, not like an accidental, this is globally, every single C is now sharp and every single F is now sharp. So I can literally, to write my major scale, just fill in the spots from D to the next D, and I will have made the D major scale. So what is the difference between a key and a scale? Well, a key is the notes we're using. A scale. That's a scale. A scale, so here we have our scale, and these are the notes we are using. But a key is the harmony that comes from these notes. We haven't talked about natural minor, melodic minor, or harmonic minor yet, but there are all these minor scales that come along that we're going to be talking about shortly. And they occasionally, if you're using the natural minor, will actually use all the same notes as the major scale, or they'll borrow heavily from them, but they'll have the same names, such as like, for example, this could be D major, or if we moved all these notes down to a B, they would be a B natural minor scale. And this is why the same notes can be two different things. And this is where the key comes from. The harmony that comes from the notes starting in a different position forms a different key. And so if that makes sense. So the key is implied from the harmony that comes from the notes we're using. The notes themselves form the scale. So the reason why it's a D major scale right now is because the key would be of a major quality. It enforces that sort of a quality, those harmonies. But it starts on D. If we were to go down to B, now, well, a B, given that all these notes, it's done some weird things. But anyways, pretend they're all natural. So it's using all the same notes as D major, but now it starts on B. The key is changed. It's been implied differently. So they'll use these two terms interchangeably, and this will become much more clear as we get into building scales and putting things together. You'll be like, oh, okay, so that's what the differences are. It'll just make sense. So if you don't get it right now, don't sweat it too much, but that is what's going on. Now let's go ahead and look at another common error. Let's look at key signatures. So another common error is how you write your key signature. So they actually have this thing that's called the order of sharps and flats. I'm moving my hand around all over the place. I want to be able to type, please. Okay. So the order of sharps and flats is the order in which we introduce sharps or flats. And what I mean is, you notice that as in our previous exercise, I believe it was the previous one, we moved around the circle of fifths. And we noticed that if we move one way, we'll order flats. We'll get one additional flat every time. So for example, we start with F, and that has a B flat. We start with a B flat major scale that has two flats. If we get to, E flat, we'll get three flats. E flat. So as we're going around, I'm used to thinking in the sharp direction. I should be comfortable in both. But anyways, as we move around, we notice we're getting more flats. And the same goes for sharps. As we move around in sharps, we'll start with, first we start with C, and then we go to G, which is one sharp. It's an F sharp. And then we get to D, that's two sharps, and then so on and so forth. So we notice there's this pattern, and we use this pattern in our key signature. We like thinking in keys. It's a more compact way of thinking. Things are easier to write, and we're able to manipulate harmonies from a reference point. So there's a lot of advantages to doing this. Musicians learn their scales, and then when they see a particular line in a piece of music, they'll recognize the scale, and away they go. They don't have to be thinking about all these exceptions. It's easier to just point out this one's weird through an accidental than it is to write in every sharp and flat. Something new musicians typically complain about. I know I did when I was new. But I didn't get keys yet. That was very new at the time, like brand new. Okay, so the order of sharps and flats, there's actually an acronym to remember this, and I like the order of flats, GCF. So I learned this one. So the way I learned this is you have bead GCF, and what this is this is the order. This is the order of flats. So when we introduce our scale, the first flat that will come up will be a B, and that's F major. And so here it is. And then the next flat will be an E flat. And if you look here, we have B flat and then an E flat. And then the next flat will be an A flat. We say B, E, A. And they also form this, they try to keep the flats. Well, they don't try. They keep the flats on the staff. So if you're writing in for your music project and you write in flats like B flat, like down below on a ledger line or something, that is wrong. You will get marked down. Shame on you. It's also, I've noticed that they do these in treble clef. So this is all treble clef, but for the bass clef, you just shift everything down. You keep them on the staff. They'll form these nice rows. And they reflect this order. Now the order of flats is this way. The order of sharps goes the other way. So it actually is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. So it actually goes the other direction. So if you know the order of flats, you know the order of sharps. And the way I remember the order of flats, usually when I think of a scale, I just know whatever the key signature is because I've worked with that scale. But if you're new, the way I learned it was bead, like a bead or something, GCF being greatest common factor. So it's a math term. So I think the bead, GCF, bead greatest common factor. And I've remembered that ever since. Never been hard to remember that. Bead, GCF. So now we know our order of flats and our order of sharps. So if we want to build a scale, we can think to this. And well, if we're building a scale, like for example, we're building a B flat major scale, and we say, oh, jank, how should I put my flats down? Well, if you're working on the computer, it's done for you. So it's sort of cheating. But if you're writing it down on a piece of paper, you need to know this. So you will put down a B flat first and then an E flat. So you'll put a B first, then an E flat. You may also be faced with a reverse problem, one where you must tell what the key is based on notes in a song or notes on a key signature. And for this, we're just going to assume everything is major for now. We're not going to worry about minor stuff. So I will put down, for example, let's say I have this key signature here. There's a trick to this. So you say, okay, there's two flats. Let's put down something crazy like this. You might be going, oh my gosh, I'm not used to thinking like this. And so what you do, if you don't immediately recognize it, is you say the name of the key, of the major key, will be the second to last flat. So, I mean, not the second to last flat. It'll be, yeah, but in the direction where this is considered the last one. So this is the first one. This is the last one. So this key is going to be G flat because the second to last flat is on the G. So we're treating this like the last. I have a tendency to think of this as the first. But anyways, this is the last. All right, let's do another one just to show you sort of the pattern. Maybe you didn't see it. Okay, I go to my last flat. I go one back, and I'm like, okay, this is on an A. This is A flat major. Bang, nailed it. Let's go to an easy one. One that a lot of people just know right off the bat. Okay, so we do this one. We say, oh, okay, here's A. The second to last flat is an E flat. So I'm like, E flat major. So that's all you got to do is the second to last flat. Easy peasy, lemon a squeezy, right? Let's do sharps. Now, sharps have a special property. Whatever your last sharp is, you go one note above it. So check this out. This is F sharp. What's one note above F sharp? G. So this is the key of G major. Later on, we'll learn minor, and it could actually represent a similar minor scale because it could use all the same notes but imply a different key, and it would also start on a different note. There's that too. Let's do another one. So let's go over here. Let's do this one. So here, our last sharp is a G sharp. And this is one of the exceptions where the sharp actually goes up instead of lands on the ledger line down here. G sharp, the note above this is an A. So this is A major. If we were to do, let's do like the crazy one. You can actually have double sharps in your key signature. We're not going to talk about those or double flats. Once you go through it once, it overlaps again. So you could wind up with B double flat, E double flat. It's more common for sharps though, I've noticed. So you could wind up with an F double sharp and a C double sharp. I've never seen a key signature, though, legitimately used where it was like that. I'm sure there's a piece out there. Someone will probably comment one. But you don't worry about those right now. Like, they exist, but don't worry about them. They're unnecessary to think about for now. Well, in general. So on this one, we say, okay, our last note is a B. And so a B sharp, which a B sharp is the same thing as a C natural, right? So one note above a B sharp would be a C sharp. So this is actually C sharp major. And if we hover over it, we can double check our answer. We say, oh, like C sharp major. So there's a good way to check it if like you're unsure of yourself. Because this one's weird because you're like, well, that's sort of, you could be thinking of diminished intervals and get sort of mixed up. So anyways, that's how you do that. So the last sharp or the second to the last flat. There are a couple exceptions. One of them is really easy to remember. It's C major. That's this guy, which is all natural. There are no sharps. There are no flats. And the reason it shows the naturals here is because I have a flat over here. And so as it moves into the next measure, I'm changing keys. So it's telling the musician, hey, everything is now natural. We're in C natural. Or it could be A minor. So that's what's going on there. The other exception where the rule doesn't work is when you only have one flat because you don't have a second to last flat anymore. This is just F. Just memorize F. And when we get into minor scales, you'll generally, if you aren't used to just thinking directly in minor scales, you'll use the major scale and then move to the minor scale. And you'll get so fast at it that eventually you'll just start thinking in minor scales. It'll be great. It's a process to get there. So this is F. All naturals is C. And then everything else you can use our amazing tool set. So just a quick recap. This is a lot of explanation for some simple stuff. There's an accidental only applies to the octave in which it is, and it is an exception to the key signature. A key signature allows us to write more compactly and think in keys more effectively. It also makes every single note that it defines as flat or sharp in every octave. So if it was D major, like C sharp and F sharp, every single F and D are by default sharp unless you notate a natural sign saying it is natural. And a key implies the harmony from a set of notes. A scale is the set of notes. They are interlinked and often interchanged as far as their usage, but they imply different things. And there are additional scales and stuff and chords that will make this information more clear, but we have to have some basic fundamental understanding of it before we can begin to jump into that stuff. So all that being said, that is that. There'll be an exercise that will get you more familiar with this. The big thing behind this one, because a lot of this stuff is done for you, is I want you to be able to take a test, a handwritten test, because most of them are handwritten. You are going to need to be able to sit down and write this stuff. And you're going to need to know there's an order. Oh yeah, order flats. Order flats, the way you remember it is BEAD, GCF. And then this backwards, there's other acronyms out there. Drop your favorite acronym down below or come up with one on your own. The other way is the order of sharp, so F, C, G. And that is the order in which the flats appear by the circle of fifths and the order in which they appear in the key signature. So that is that. If you have any questions about this stuff, let me know. It's a lot of more technical stuff, but it is important to know so you don't make stupid technical errors and get marked -1 on a quiz or something. Subscribe and have a blessed day.